So, as we're saying, young people want to drive. They also want to watch films at the cinema, particularly art films and independent films and foreign language films. According to the British Film Institute, a fifth of people who went to their screenings last year at the South Bank in London were aged 16 to 24. That's double the proportion 7 years ago. At the Barbican in London, almost half of the audience for The Sweet East, an art house film, was aged 14 to 25. It's a glimmer of hope for independent cinemas across the UK. In general, audience numbers at the cinema are a quarter down on pre-pandemic levels. People had been particularly worried that small independents would not survive. Alfred Davidson's 21. He's president of the University of Manchester Filmmaking Society. Alfred, tell us, how important is going to the cinema to you?
Hi, Winifred.
Hi.
It's probably one of the most important things in my life. Not only is it a communal space for me where I can go with my friends to see sort of the latest that's being released. It's also something that then informs discussion later on.
So why do you think more people of your age are open to going to independent cinemas, watching in particular these art house foreign language films?
I think something to do with that is definitely the fact that Letterboxd has sort of connected us.
That's a social media platform that's all about films.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a place where people who wouldn't necessarily have heard of these films will see it pop up on their screen and see other people reviewing them, and maybe go, oh, that sounds like it would be good, and then that sort of informs a decision to then maybe go see it at a cinema where it happens to be showing.
Most arts venues, including these small independent cinemas, they offer very cheap tickets, don't they, to young people? Tell us what you're paying.
Yeah, so there's a great sort of pass in Manchester for the cinema home, which I think it's £18 a month, and it allows you to see as many films at home as you want to in that month.
At home, the cinema, not at home in your own house?
No, not at home in my own house.
Okay, so
yeah, at home cinema.
How often are you going, would you say?
Probably about twice a week. So.
Oh, well, yeah, you're getting good use of it then.
Yeah.
You're paying £18 to go. If you really did go twice a week, that would be how many times is that? £18 for 16 times.
Yeah, 16
my maths is not good today, is it? Okay, let me bring in Delphine Leven. She's from TAPE. It works to improve representation and engagement among young people in film. And David Sin is from the Independent Cinema Office. It's funded by the industry. It supports independent cinemas. Hello, both. Welcome, both. David.
Hello.
Do you think the average age of audiences in independent cinemas then is falling everywhere? Those figures I quoted at the start, they're just for 2 venues in London.
I don't think it's falling everywhere. I think it is falling in general, and there are particular venues which are kind of at the vanguard of this move towards younger audiences, where the audience is changing, that the audience profile is changing and getting much younger.
So what kind of venues and why?
Well, venues like Watershed in Bristol, for example, have very much embraced and started serving their younger audiences in a really major way. Partly, Alfred's example kind of exemplifies a lot of what is happening in certain venues. So that venue, for example, has much worked with and developed their audience with Letterboxd and worked with that film-going community, which generally skews in a much younger age range.
Yes, that online media platform, Letterboxd, is all about film. Do you think the films themselves have changed, or are they just changing the kind of film they offer to appeal to younger people?
I think the films themselves have changed to some extent. There appear to be more art house titles now that are working with those younger audiences. There's a more consistent supply of them into the market. So films like La Chimera recently is a typical case of a kind of almost feels like a classic art house film, but it's got appeal to a much younger audience through its casting, and the kind of social media discussion that surrounds the film positions it to that younger audience in a much more effective way.
Is it French?
It's an Italian film.
It's Italian, okay. Delphine, foreign language films then. Why are young people up for them, do you think?
I think there's a number of reasons. I think there's been a lot of discussion about how younger audiences perhaps explored foreign language cinema during lockdown. So when people kind of had a lot of time on their hands to consume content, and obviously streaming platforms like Netflix and the like have, lots of foreign language content available because they're global platforms. And beyond that, we see that younger audiences tend to be less averse to watching subtitles. They'll even watch English language content with subtitles on. So I think those things combined, and also, with, like I mentioned, people are watching things on streaming, but they like to look for something they maybe can't necessarily see so easily online, something a bit different. And I think foreign language cinema kind of has an appeal to young audiences for offering up, an alternative perspective to them, an alternative worldview that they won't necessarily see in, a Marvel or a blockbuster film.
So interesting, isn't it? You said we're all more used to reading subtitles, and we even have subtitles on English language films. I guess also in the internet age, we're all just much more used to reading print on screen, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just become part of sort of the media literacy of those young audiences, particularly Gen Zs. That's how they process content, is via having text on screen.
David, how much of this would you say is about price? Because if it is about price, we heard how little Alfred's paying to go and see films at this home place.
Yeah.
Once
I think the vast majority of independent...
Sorry, I was just going to say, once they reach a certain age, they'll have to pay the full whack, won't they? It's usually 25.
Well, they will, but I think the idea is that by that time their taste in films and cinema going will have been formed, and they'll have a sort of attachment and engagement to a broader range of films at their independent cinema. But I think price is an important part of the mix. It's not the only factor, obviously, in attracting those younger audiences to independent cinemas. But I think the vast majority of independent cinemas now will offer some kind of ticket discounted price to younger audiences, as it's always been an aim for independent cinemas to attract a wider range of different audiences, including the young audience. It's just that now it seems that the opportunity is much greater for indie cinemas, and there is this growing younger audience.
Delphine, do you think the pandemic's part of it? It's left us with this legacy of isolation, hasn't it, with so many people working from home. Do you think young people want to get out to see stuff because they just want to get out?
Yeah, I think so. And I think also there's this idea of going to the cinema being an event, a night out. We kind of saw this obviously with the Barbie Oppenheimer buzz last year, but it applies just as much to smaller film releases. For young people, and cost of living affects us all, and if they can get cheap tickets to the cinema, that replaces what might have been previously a night out to the theatre, to live sport or live concerts. They're being given an opportunity to get out of the house, and at a reasonable price too.
Delphine, I mentioned the film Sweet East. I haven't seen it. What's that one about?
It's a slightly bizarre film. It's about a girl who sort of goes on an odyssey across some of the sort of northeastern states of the US, meeting various kind of people as she goes. It's one of the films that, I think someone mentioned earlier, like with La Camera, which had a cast that are kind of quite well engaged with social media. It's the same thing. It had like a really young cast with sort of lots of actors, Gen Z actors that Gen Z audiences are fans of. So again, I think, and that was a film that didn't necessarily have a particularly large UK release, and I think traditionally never really would have made it. Those sorts of American indie films don't always make it across the pond, but in this case, because there was so much kind of social media buzz around it amongst young people, the kind of desire for audiences to see it on the big screen here was realised, and therefore it was, able to be shown in cinemas.
Alfred, do you find the social media buzz is accurate? Do you find it lives up to its expectations?
I definitely do think that it is probably the place where most young people find out about new releases.
Okay, give us a recommendation then. A must-see film at any age.
At any age, well, one of my all-time favorites is Paper Moon, directed by Peter Bogdanovich. It's very good. It's very sweet.
Okay, thanks so much for that. Thank you. I'll give it a try.
Thank you.
And that was Alfred Davidson from the Independent Cinema Office, and Delphine Levens from Tape.